Her name was Claire. She never introduced herself that way. My best friend had just shouted it once across the kitchen, and the syllables stuck to me like heat. I had been to their house dozens of times before, but lately it was different. Or maybe I was different. That night, it was just her and me in the living room. My friend had gone out, said he'd be late. I should have left right then, but she asked if I wanted to stay, just until he came back. Her voice carried a kind of practiced calm, but the way she smoothed her skirt told a different story, small movements, like she was trying not to think too hard about me being there. I sat across from her, pretending to watch the muted TV. She sipped a glass of wine, fingers holding the stem too long between lifts. Every time I glanced up, her eyes darted away, then back. And each time, my chest pulled tighter, like something inevitable was sliding closer. The air had a weight to it. Not heavy in a suffocating way, more like the way a summer night feels when you can sense a storm but the rain hasn't started yet. I don't know why my hand brushed hers on the armrest. Maybe I was reaching for the remote. Maybe it was something else entirely. Her fingers didn't move at first, just stiffened. Then, slowly, she exhaled and didn't pull away. The warmth of her skin surprised me, not just warmth, but a kind of living hum. Like every nerve in me had been waiting for that exact point of contact. "You're too quiet," she said after a long stretch. Her voice broke the silence in the room but not the silence between us. I shrugged. My throat was dry. "You talk enough for both of us." Her lips curled, not quite a smile, more like she was holding one back. "Don't think I don't notice you looking." There was no accusation in it. No scolding. Just truth laid bare on the table between us. I should have denied it. I should have laughed, shifted, looked at the screen again. Instead, I leaned in just enough for her to feel the shift of air, and for a second she didn't breathe. The lamplight caught the edge of her cheekbone, softening the years but not erasing them. She was beautiful in a way that didn't ask for approval. She just was. And maybe that was what made her so untouchable, and so impossible not to want. Her hand slipped from under mine, only to land lightly on my wrist. A tether. Barely there, but enough to keep me from retreating. "One night," she whispered again. Like she needed to remind herself as much as me. I should have said nothing. But the words pressed out of me before I could stop them. "One night will never be enough." She froze. Her fingers tightened for a second, then released. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sharp, full of everything we weren't supposed to admit. And then, the sound of a key turning in the front door. Her eyes shot to mine. Wide. Caught. The door creaked open. The door had closed again hours ago, but I still heard the echo of it. My friend had stumbled in, mumbled something about being exhausted, and gone straight to his room. That left me and Claire in the kitchen, pretending we were strangers again. Pretending my words, "one night will never be enough," weren't still floating between us like smoke that wouldn't clear. She busied herself rinsing dishes that didn't need rinsing. Her back was straight, movements clipped, as if order could scrub out the disorder of what almost happened. I leaned against the counter, trying to look casual, though my pulse was hammering so hard it made the veins in my neck tight. "You should have gone home," she said finally, not looking at me. "You wanted me to?" Her hand stilled on the sponge, water running too long before she shut it off. She didn't answer. That silence said more than any yes or no. I had known Claire for years, or at least I thought I had. She was the steady one, the mom who remembered birthdays, who carried herself with the kind of composure that made everyone else feel like a mess. But there was something in her now, a hesitation that didn't fit. Something fragile under all that polish. Maybe it was the divorce, quiet, barely mentioned. My friend had muttered once about his dad starting over, and the words had stuck with me. Claire never said a thing about it, but sometimes, when no one was talking, I caught a look on her face like she was remembering something lost. "I don't usually," she started, then shook her head. I stepped closer, careful not to crowd her but enough that the warmth of her body brushed against mine. Her perfume wasn't strong, just the faintest trace of something floral that had sunk into the fabric of her blouse. It made me want to lean in, breathe it deeper. You don't usually what? Her eyes flicked up at me. Tired, guarded, but burning in a way that made my stomach flip. This isn't a game for me. The words should have cooled me, but instead they sparked. I didn't want a game either. My shoulder brushed hers when I reached for a towel. The contact was nothing, innocent, almost careless, but her breath hitched. She stepped back, only to stop short when the counter blocked her. You're too young, she whispered. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the one thing I expected her to say. I'm old enough to know what I want. Her lips parted, but no words came. Just the rise and fall of her chest, quick now, betraying the calm face she tried to hold. I didn't touch her hand this time. I didn't have to. The space between us felt thinner than skin. Her phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the moment. She grabbed it too quickly, pressing it face down. Whatever it was, she didn't want me to see. When she looked back, her voice was steady again, but her fingers, resting on the counter beside mine, trembled just enough for me to notice. And I didn't move mine away. It happened again 2 nights later. My friend had asked me to come by for a late movie. He fell asleep halfway through, snoring lightly on the couch. Claire and I stayed awake. Neither of us admitted we were watching each other more than the screen. The glow from the TV painted her face in shifting colors. Sometimes shadows softened her into something delicate, almost girlish. Other times, the light caught the lines at the corners of her eyes, reminding me exactly why I shouldn't want her the way I did. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Both of us froze. Relax, she whispered, leaning toward me. Her voice barely reached my ear, warm, almost brushing against my skin. But I couldn't. Not with her this close. My hand twitched against my knee, aching to bridge the gap. Claire! I started, too low, too raw. Her eyes snapped to mine. The weight of it made my throat lock. She reached for the remote, fingers grazing mine by accident, or maybe not. The contact jolted through me. You can't, she said softly. Not here. Not now. I swallowed hard. My friend stirred, turning over, but didn't wake. Claire pulled back slightly, as though the air between us might explode if she stayed too close. Still, she didn't leave the couch. Minutes ticked. The movie ended, credits rolling, forgotten. Neither of us moved. My pulse beat so hard I thought it might shake the room. Do you ever? She began, then stopped. She pressed her lips together, thinking better of it. Ever what? Her hand tightened around the remote. Nothing. But the way she shifted closer said otherwise. The couch was small. Her knee brushed mine. She didn't move it. The sound of footsteps upstairs broke the spell. My friend mumbled something half asleep, then padded to the kitchen for water. We sat like statues, pretending to watch the blank screen. My chest ached with the effort of stillness. When he finally trudged back upstairs, Claire let out a shaky laugh. See? Too close. She said it like a warning again, but her body betrayed her. She was angled toward me, not away. I leaned closer, just enough to test the boundary. Do you want me to stop? Her breath caught. She didn't answer. Silence stretched, full of everything she couldn't say. I could see the pulse at her throat, quick and fragile. My face inched toward hers, slower than I'd ever moved. Her lips parted, an invitation or a protest I couldn't tell. But just before the space vanished, she drew back, barely. Don't. The word landed like a stone, but her hand lingered against mine even as she pulled away. That small betrayal, saying no while still holding on, was worse than if she'd kissed me. Because it meant she wanted to. And so did I. The storm outside had started without warning. Rain lashed the windows, thunder rolling in waves that rattled the glass. My friend was upstairs, asleep again. This time it was just me and Claire at the kitchen table, the room dim except for the small light above the sink. She was pouring herself another glass of wine when her hand slipped slightly. I caught the bottle before it toppled, steadying it between us. Our fingers brushed, lingered. Too long. Neither of us pulled away. She drew in a breath, sharp and quiet. You shouldn't look at me that way. Then stop giving me reasons to. My voice surprised me, rougher than I meant, full of something I'd been holding back too long. Her eyes flicked up. There was no smile this time, no soft retreat. Just fire, startled and alive. She stopped. The word tangled in her throat. I'm not what you think I am. I leaned in, close enough to see the tiny flecks of gold in her irises. Then tell me what you are. She shook her head, but the motion was weak. Her breath feathered against my cheek, warm and sweet with wine. My hand rose on its own, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The silk of it slid over my fingers, and for a second she leaned into my palm before catching herself. Her hand shot up, catching my wrist. Not pushing it away. Just holding it there, against her cheek. You don't understand, she whispered. People talk. Your friend, I don't care. The words came fast, almost desperate. I don't care who knows. I don't care how wrong it looks. I just. The thunder cracked again, drowning the end of my sentence. She didn't move, though. Her hand still held mine, pressing it tighter against her skin, as though she needed the anchor as much as I did. Her body shifted forward. She was so close now I could feel the tremor in her chest against my arm. The scent of her, faint perfume mixed with rain-soaked air drifting through the window, made it impossible to think. You're too young, she said again, but her voice was trembling now, the conviction thinning out. Say you don't want this, I whispered, lowering my mouth toward hers. Say it, and I'll stop. Her lips parted, but no words came. Only silence, broken by her uneven breathing. My nose brushed hers, light testing. Her eyes fluttered shut. For a moment, it was all gravity pulling us together, unstoppable. Then, a sudden knock at the back door. We jolted apart, hearts racing, her hand flying to her chest. She stared at me, wide-eyed, torn between fear and something dangerously close to surrender. The knock came again. Don't move, she breathed, voice ragged. The knock at the door wasn't a stranger. It was my friend, soaked from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, fumbling with his keys. I forgot my phone in the car, he muttered, barely glancing at me before heading upstairs again. Just like that, the danger passed. But the silence he left behind was different. Claire hadn't moved from the table. Her hand was still pressed to her chest as though steadying her heartbeat. When she finally looked at me, there was no fire this time, only raw exposure, as if the storm outside had stripped her bare. I can't, she began, but then she stopped, closing her eyes. When she opened them again, she looked straight at me, unflinching. He knows. My stomach tightened. What? She nodded, swallowing hard. Your friend. He's not blind. He asked me once if I noticed the way you. She trailed off, her cheeks coloring, as though the words themselves burned. The way you look at me. Heat shot through me, sharp and humiliating. And what did you say? Her fingers curled against the table, knuckles white. I lied. The word hung between us, heavy and irreversible. She rose from her chair slowly, as though standing took effort. When she brushed past me on her way to the sink, her shoulder grazed mine, light but electric, sending a jolt down my arm. My body leaned toward her instinctively, but she caught herself on the counter, trembling. I told him it was nothing, she whispered, back still turned. That I didn't notice. That you were just a boy. The word boy cut, but the way her voice cracked on it betrayed something else. I stood behind her now, close enough to see the fine tremor in her hands as she gripped the edge of the counter. And was it a lie? My voice was lower than I intended, the storm outside echoing it. She closed her eyes, shoulders tightening. Her silence was answer enough. I stepped closer. My chest brushed her back, the faintest contact, but it drew a sharp inhale from her. My hand hovered, then gently touched her wrist. She didn't pull away. Claire. Her name slipped out like a confession. She turned then, suddenly, too close, and we were face to face in the narrow kitchen. Her eyes shone, conflicted, frightened, but alive. If he finds out. She started. I already know he suspects. And still. Her voice broke, almost pleading. Still, I can't stop. The words came out rough, shaking. My forehead nearly touched hers now, the storm outside a low roar, the house impossibly still. She let out a breath that trembled against my lips. Her hands finally pressed against my chest, not pushing me away, not pulling me closer, just trembling there like she couldn't decide. Then she whispered, so faint I almost missed it. Neither can I. The storm had quieted outside, but in the kitchen the air felt charged, like the lightning hadn't left. Her hands were still on my chest, trembling. Mine hovered at her waist, too hesitant to claim, too desperate to let go. We stood like that for a long moment, every breath between us measured, sharp, dangerous. Tell me to leave, I whispered. My voice was low, hoarse, almost a plea. If you mean it, I'll go. Her eyes searched mine, frantic, like she wanted to find a reason to push me back. But her fingers curled tighter against my shirt instead of releasing. Don't make me say it, she murmured. Her forehead brushed mine, feather-light, as though she didn't mean to move that close. The world shrank to the space between our mouths. The sound of rain dripping from the eaves, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the quick stutter of our breaths. My hand finally settled against her hip, and I felt the shiver run through her. This is wrong, she said, but the words dissolved into the warmth of my breath. Then stop me. Her eyes closed. She didn't. The kiss, when it came, wasn't smooth or planned. It was messy, inevitable, mouths meeting too fast, too hard, years of restraint breaking in one reckless moment. Her hands fisted in my shirt, pulling me closer. Mine slid up her back, holding her like she might vanish if I loosened my grip. We broke apart only to breathe, foreheads pressed together, both of us unsteady. I tried, she whispered, voice shaking. I told myself it was loneliness, that it was just a passing thing. And now? My thumb brushed her jaw, the curve soft beneath the tremor in her skin. Her eyes opened, glassy but fierce. Now I know I was lying to myself. The honesty hit harder than the kiss. It wasn't just want, it was surrender. Her head rested against my shoulder then, just for a moment, as though letting herself collapse into the truth. I held her without hesitation, breathing in the faint scent of her hair, the heat of her body pressed close. You're going to regret this, she said softly, though her arms around me betrayed her words. Maybe, I admitted. But not tonight. The storm outside gave one last low rumble, then faded into silence. The house felt unbearably still, like it was holding its breath with us. When she finally lifted her face, there was no more hiding in her eyes. No denial. Just clarity, fragile and terrifying, but real. One night only, she whispered again, though this time it sounded like a promise she already knew she couldn't keep. And I smiled, my lips brushing hers once more. Then let it be enough to change everything. The rain had stopped by morning. Sunlight slipped through the blinds in thin, golden stripes, painting the kitchen in a gentler kind of quiet. The storm was gone, but something heavier lingered between us, not fear, not guilt, but the weight of a choice we couldn't take back. Claire sat across from me at the table, hair pulled loosely behind her head, a mug warming her hands. She didn't speak for a long time, and I didn't rush her. There was something beautiful in her silence. The way she looked down, then up, then away again, as if rehearsing words she wasn't sure she should say out loud. Finally, she did. I thought it would feel worse, she admitted softly. Like regret would come rushing in as soon as the sun came up. And? Her lips curved, not quite a smile but something softer. It didn't. Relief spread through me so strong it almost hurt. I reached across the table, hesitant, letting my fingers brush hers. She didn't pull back. Instead, she turned her hand palm up, lacing our fingers together. People will talk, she said after a pause. Let them. She shook her head gently, though the corners of her eyes warmed. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is, I said. It's just us. Nothing else matters right now. Her gaze lingered on me then, long and searching, as if she were weighing every line on my face, every flaw, every difference. But instead of pulling away, she leaned forward, resting her chin lightly on her free hand, her other still twined with mine. I keep waiting to wake up and find out I imagined you saying that, she whispered. I slid out of my chair and moved around to her side. Standing behind her, I let my hands rest gently on her shoulders, thumbs brushing the curve of her collarbone. She tilted her head back, eyes closing, a quiet sigh escaping her lips. When I bent, pressing a slow kiss to her forehead, she reached up, covering my hand with hers. That single gesture, simple, steady, sure, felt more intimate than anything we'd done the night before. Don't promise me forever, she said finally. Just promise me you won't pretend this didn't happen. I crouched so we were eye to eye, her face framed in the soft morning light. I couldn't, even if I tried. For the first time, her smile came unguarded, not polished, not restrained, just real. And it undid me. She leaned against me then, her cheek resting over my heart, as if testing whether it beat as wildly in daylight as it had in the dark. My arms wrapped around her, holding her close, and for once either of us felt the need to pull away. The house was still, the world outside slowly waking, but in that small kitchen, it felt like nothing existed but her warmth pressed into me, our hands still locked together. Not one night. Not a mistake. Just the beginning.